the mirror of monsters, why we fear ourselves more than the world. What if the chaos you feel in life has less to do with the world outside and more to do with a silent war unfolding within you? Carl Jung believed that the most profound battles are not fought in politics, in business, or in the streets, but in the deepest layers of the human psyche. He wasn't speaking in metaphors. He meant it literally. You and I are not simply navigating life, we're navigating ourselves. Every day, we are in constant negotiation with thoughts we don't want to think, emotions we don't want to feel, and memories we've locked in the basement of our consciousness. We pretend we're in control, but often we're merely reacting, pulled by invisible strings tied to unacknowledged fears and wounds. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And when you really understand what that means, it's terrifying. Because it suggests that most of what we blame on bad luck, other people, or even destiny is actually just us acting out a script we never knew we were reading. But here's the catch. We can't just rip that script apart. We have to read it, line by line, even the parts we hate. Jung called this process shadow work, the act of bringing the hidden parts of ourselves into the light, not to destroy them, but to integrate them. The shadow isn't evil. It's repressed emotion, unlived potential, forgotten pain. It's the parts of you that were exiled because they didn't fit into the mask you were told to wear. Maybe you were told not to cry, so you buried your sadness. Maybe you were punished for being angry, so you buried your rage. Maybe you were shamed for wanting more, so you buried your ambition. But these parts didn't disappear. They became your shadow, and the longer you ignore them, the more they control your life from behind the scenes. Jung's genius was in showing us that peace doesn't come from denying our darkness. It comes from making peace with it, not by pretending it's not there, but by understanding what it's trying to say.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
So let me ask you, when was the last time you sat with your emotions, not to fix them or push them away, but just to listen? Most of us don't do that. We distract ourselves. We scroll, we binge, we drink, we keep busy. Anything to avoid the stillness where the truth might speak. But that truth doesn't disappear. It waits. And it shows up in strange ways, like anxiety that makes no sense, or self-sabotage that ruins what we love, or patterns that keep repeating no matter how much we try to change. These are not random. They are signals. They are the psyche's way of shouting what the conscious mind refuses to hear. And if we keep ignoring them, life begins to feel like a loop we can't escape. That's not because the world is against us. It's because we haven't faced the part of ourselves we've labeled as unworthy, dangerous, or wrong. But what if that part isn't a monster? What if it's a messenger? This is where the philosophical weight of Jung's work hits hard. He believed that the path to inner peace is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming whole. And wholeness means embracing contradiction. It means you can be kind and angry, loving and selfish, strong and afraid. It means you stop trying to cut yourself into pieces just to be accepted. Instead, you become the kind of person who can hold all of who they are, not proudly, not shamefully, but truthfully. And that's where real strength comes from. Not from pretending to be invulnerable, but from knowing your vulnerabilities so well that they no longer scare you. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are by integrating every part of you, especially the ones you've run from. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You stop being at war with yourself. And for the first time, you feel peace, not because the world changed, but because you did. So here's the final question for this chapter. What would it take for you to stop running from yourself? Not in some abstract philosophical way, but in your actual life. What would it look like to face your own shadow, not to defeat it, but to understand it? Could you sit with your jealousy long enough to hear what it fears? Could you listen to your sadness without trying to fix it? Could you forgive your past self for not knowing what you know now? These aren't easy questions, but they are essential, because the battle within doesn't end with victory. It ends with truth. And that truth is this: The shadow you fear is not here to destroy you. It's here to show you who you truly are. And once you see that, you'll never fight the same battle again. The labyrinth of light, transforming the shadow into strength. What if the very thing you've been trying to escape your entire life is actually the source of your strength? That's the paradox Carl Jung forces us to grapple with. He didn't want us to overcome our darkness in the way that modern self-help tends to oversimplify. No, Jung believed something much more radical. He believed that your darkness, your shadow, is not your flaw. It's your beginning. It's the raw material of your transformation, but only if you have the courage to descend into it. And here's the catch. The descent is not glamorous. It's not poetic. It's not something you can boast about on social media. It's dirty, it's emotional, it's lonely, but it's real. And that's where the healing begins, not at the surface of your personality, but at the roots of your soul. We live in a culture obsessed with rising, rise, and grind, rise above, rise to the top. But Jung reminds us that before any true rising can happen, there must be a descent into the underworld of your psyche, into the memories you've avoided, into the emotions you've denied, into the identities you've outgrown but keep performing. And in that descent, you will not find perfection, you will find yourself. Your real self, not the version that tries to impress, or perform, or please, but the version that simply is. And that self, the one you meet in the darkness, isn't weak. It's raw, which means it holds power, but only if you stop rejecting it. Only if you stop labeling your own depths as bad or broken. Jung believed that the shadow contains the energy of everything we've repressed. And when we reclaim that energy, we don't just become more whole, we become more alive. Let's bring this idea down to earth. Think about someone who triggers you, someone who makes you irrationally angry or insecure or jealous. Jung would say, that's your shadow pointing at itself. What you see in them is usually something unresolved in you. That doesn't mean you're exactly like them. It means they are a mirror reflecting something you've disowned. Maybe their arrogance mirrors your suppressed confidence. Maybe their loudness mirrors your silenced voice. Maybe their freedom mirrors your self-imposed cage. This is called projection, and most of us are doing it all the time, shouting at others when deep down we're shouting at ourselves. But once you recognize this, you gain power. You stop blaming the mirror and you start cleaning the lens. You realize they're not the problem. You just haven't met that part of yourself yet. This is where transformation begins. Not when you fix yourself, but when you begin to dialogue with yourself. Jung often used the method of active imagination, literally sitting down with your emotions, your anger, your fear, your shame, and letting them speak. Not to control them, but to understand them. What would your fear say if you gave it a voice? What would your shame confess if it knew it wouldn't be punished? What would your inner critic admit if it realized it was never meant to hurt you but to protect you from a past pain? When you approach your shadow with curiosity instead of judgment, it begins to soften. It begins to reveal its secrets. And those secrets are always the same. I acted out because I wasn't seen. I sabotaged you because I didn't feel safe. I kept you small because I was afraid you'd be hurt again. The shadow doesn't want to win. It wants to be heard. So what happens when we finally listen? That's when the labyrinth becomes a map. That's when the monsters guarding the gates of your psyche turn out to be wounded children in disguise. That's when the pain you carried for years becomes the guide to your purpose. Because make no mistake, your shadow is not just a vault of trauma. It is a reservoir of potential. Every quality you admire in others' boldness, creativity, assertiveness, mystery, they all exist within you. But some of them were buried because they were misunderstood. Jung believed that the shadow includes not just the dark, but also the gold. Reclaiming your shadow means reclaiming your inner fire. It means you stop asking for permission to exist. You stop waiting to be ready. You stop fearing your power. Because you finally realize the parts of you that were exiled are the very parts that make you whole. So here's the question to sit with now. What power have you buried inside your shadow? What gift, what voice, what truth have you hidden because someone once told you it was too much, too loud, too weird, too emotional, too intense? And are you ready to reclaim it not just for yourself, but for the life you are meant to live? Because the truth is, the world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more whole people. People who have walked into their own darkness and returned with light. People who have met their monsters and made them allies. People who no longer fear the truth because they are the truth. That's what Carl Jung wanted for us. Not comfort, not conformity, but consciousness. And the moment you choose that path, no matter how messy, no matter how painful is the moment, the battle within becomes a journey home. The alchemy of wholeness, how embracing your darkness frees your light. We live in a world addicted to light, to progress, to positivity, to clarity. We chase the sun and fear the night. But Jung reminds us of something ancient, something sacred. There is no light without darkness, and not just in the poetic sense. Psychologically, spiritually, existentially, light without darkness is delusion. It's a shallow glow that blinds rather than reveals. True light, the kind that guides, the kind that heals, is born from darkness. It is shaped by it. And that's the final transformation Jung offers us. When we stop trying to destroy our inner darkness and instead embrace it, we unlock something far more powerful than peace. We unlock wholeness. And wholeness is what we're actually searching for when we say we want happiness, success, love, or freedom. Because those things by themselves are fleeting. But wholeness, that lasts. Let's be brutally honest. Most of us are fragmented. We are hungry for meaning, but afraid to look where that meaning lies inside our wounds, our contradictions, our failures. We try to become better versions of ourselves, but we do it by cutting away the parts that make us uncomfortable. And that's not growth. That's spiritual amputation. You cannot become whole by slicing yourself into palatable pieces. You cannot become free by locking away your deeper truths. Jung's alchemical model of the psyche teaches us that transformation is not about subtraction, it's about integration. You don't throw away your fear, you make it sacred. You don't silence your rage, you let it teach you boundaries. You don't kill the ego, you bring it into right relationship with the soul. It's not about choosing the light over the dark. It's about holding both, consciously. This is where the philosophy becomes intensely practical. When you begin to live as a whole person, not just a good person, you start to see every part of your life differently. Your relationships deepen because you're no longer projecting your shadow onto others. You stop trying to fix people, save people, or control them because you've learned to sit with your own chaos. You become more honest, not just with others, but with yourself. You finally admit what you want, what you feel, what you can't pretend about anymore. You stop chasing perfection and start cultivating presence. And from this presence, you begin to make decisions not from fear or guilt or shame, but from truth. That's real power. That's sovereignty. That's the kind of peace that doesn't rely on circumstances, it radiates from within. But let's not sugarcoat it. This path is not easy. To become whole means to grieve the mask you wore for so long, to drop the performance, to let go of the identity that made you feel safe but also kept you small. It means facing the parts of you that are still stuck in childhood, still longing for approval, still terrified of rejection. It means forgiving yourself not in a sentimental way, but in a fierce, grounded, almost defiant way. Forgiving yourself for not knowing better, for surviving the only way you could, for the years you spent asleep, disconnected, afraid. Jung never promised that shadow work would be painless. He only promised it would be liberating. And when you finally step into that liberation, not as a perfect being, but as a whole one, you begin to understand what inner peace actually means. Inner peace is not a feeling. It's not a state you achieve and then hold on to forever. It's a relationship with yourself that is rooted in truth. It's the willingness to face discomfort in order to reclaim your soul. It's the commitment to stop running, to stop blaming, to stop editing your humanity. And when you live like that, you become something rare in this world, a person who is not afraid to be real, a person who doesn't need to dominate or submit to impress or escape, a person who can stand in the fire of life and say, I know who I am, and I am not ashamed. That's what Jung meant by individuation. And that's what you and I are really searching for, not a life without suffering, but a self that can contain suffering without collapsing. Not a life without fear, but a heart that can walk with fear and still choose love. So here's the final question, the one that may haunt you or free you or both. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to be good and started trying to be whole? What would happen if you stopped filtering your humanity through the lens of what's acceptable or respectable or safe, and instead asked, what is true? What is mine? What is real? These are not easy questions, but they are the only questions that matter. Because the battle within does not end with victory. It ends with integration. And when that happens, when the war between your light and your darkness is replaced by a deeper alliance, then, and only then, do you discover the secret Jung left for us all. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of wholeness.